Hi, welcome back to online computer learning.in, and as we discussed in our previous video training, this in this last session of today's video training, we will discuss how to install Active Directory services on the newly installed Windows Server 2003 member server or the standalone server, and how to make it a domain controller for your newly set up organization. Or if you are trying to create a new domain controller in your existing domain, you can also follow the same procedure to create a new domain controller to add to your existing domain. Before I proceed to the practical, I would like to give you some tricks and some best practices that you should follow or adhere to make your life easy while installing the domain controller in your newly created organization. Okay, so this is an illustration on some of the best practices that I am going to tell you, that if you implement and follow while installing the DNS infrastructure and while creating the DNS namespace structure for your organization, going forward, when your Active Directory infrastructure will grow, the management and the creation of new OU, that is organizational unit, and also creation of your accounts, user groups, as well as creation of your new child domain will be very easy, as well as the control and the management of trust relationships among these domains, that may be at the tree level, that may be at the forest level, or parent or child domain level, will be very efficient and easy to manage. So suppose, for the sake of discussion, we have two different domain namespace in our organization. One is the OCL.in, which is online computer learning.in, and the other one is growthall.local. Now, why I have chosen this name, or what will be the benefit of choosing such a small. Okay, so what I want to say, that why we have chosen this short name like OCL.in instead of online computer learning.in in this case. See, there is no harm in selecting a long domain name, but if you are going online and if you choose very long domain name for your organization, and if you are marketing something, and so you want your potential customers to remember your names, so the best practice is either you choose such a name or such a domain name that people can make a meaning out of that. Like in our case, online computer learning does mean that, and when you say online computer learning, a picture will come in your mind that, okay, this is an organization, or this is some expert who is teaching online computer courses. So you know what you are going to get, or how this particular site or organization can help you to build your career and build your life and make your life great. So this is one best practice, that always choose a meaningful name that represent your organization correctly. Apart from that, make your domain name as short as possible, but not as short that it doesn't mean anything. Like OCL is good if everybody knows that OCL means online computer learning, but it might mean a different thing also based on the scenario and how the abbreviation has been used. So now, since you know what is online computer learning.in, you understand that OCL will help me to build my career in an affordable cost, and also I will definitely learn some industry best practices regarding IT and computer industry. So you know how online computer learning will make your career a great career to build. So the two best practices are, once again, that you choose a meaningful name while choosing your organizational domain name, and also make it reasonably short so that your potential customer or potential visitors can remember it and can understand it properly, what they want to, by the usage of the domain name you are going to set expectation for your website visitors. I hope you have understood the concept why you should choose a short and reasonably short, but not as short that it doesn't mean anything, and a proper domain name. Now, for sake of discussion, suppose we have two different domain namespace, that is OCLin and growthall.local. So now you know the best practice of choosing a domain name. And for example, as I told, the OCL in what you can expect from this website, and from growthall.local or growthall.co.in, you know that if you visit this site, there will be some expert advices that will help you to build your health in a very positive way, so that you can grow tall and look smart and get your get good jobs, which is related to your health, actually the human health. So now from the name itself, from growthall.co.in, you can understand, okay, this is a site which will help me with some important advices or important tricks, and with some important nutritional advices, by following which I can look smart and I can grow tall than others, fellow members, and I will definitely look smart. So these two names does make sense, and the visitors can understand what they are going to see and what kind of benefit they are going to get from these websites or from these organizations. One more important thing that you should know while you are pre-planning and or on the job, when you are going to create new child domain structure. The best practice is, whenever possible, make your infrastructure a single domain infrastructure, because Active Directory database can support and can store millions of Active Directory objects. Now you know what is object. Yes, so what we are discussing, that regarding this a single domain, the problem is the best practice is that you need to always keep in mind that I will try to create a single domain based infrastructure, how big or how small is my company, because it will make your life easier as a system administrator, because there will not be the problem of keeping track of trust relationship between different forest, different tree and different domains, across your organization. As I was telling just a minute back that Active Directory database can store and can support millions and millions of Active Directory objects. And as I also told that Active Directory object means all the user groups, all the user accounts, all the printer accounts, all the resource accounts, as well as organizational unit, container, domain container, child domain, and each and everything, whatever the objects are, it can contain millions and millions of objects. And till now in my whole career I have never come across a news where an organization as big as Microsoft, TCS, IBM or Thomson Reuters or any kind of bank like ICICI, or maybe this is Bank of America, or take any huge organization who has millions of objects for in their infrastructure, have faced a problem where their Active Directory database has told that you cannot create any more object for your organization. That means that Active Directory database is so capable and so efficient that it can store millions and millions of objects. So your aim as an administrator or integrator or a manager of IT is to make an efficient and most simple but very capable infrastructure with the help of single domain Active Directory infrastructure, single forest, single tree, single domain. If not single tree, but at least those trees will be single domain trees. That way you can get rid of unnecessary trouble of having wrong and miscommunication between domains and trust and trust a relationship problem which might become a nightmare for you if anything goes wrong and if you have thousands of trust relationship to take care of. So the best practice is go for single domain infrastructure whenever possible. One more important thing you need to remember that, and this is a best practice that is suggested by many top level organizational system admins, and they have got very high benefit out of it, that try to make your root domain empty, because if you keep your root domain empty, that is scatter free and without any unnecessary organization unit, objects, etc., you can make an efficient system admin job, and you can also use proper delegation job. I will tell you how. So the empty forest root domain, that is this domain, if you keep it root, it is also called dedicated forest root domain, and or it is also called a placeholder domain in the industry. So it is an empty forest root domain where you are not creating any additional organizational unit or any additional accounts for your users. You are going to keep it clean so that you will not touch this domain until and unless you are going to make a huge structural change in your organization. Suppose you are going to change the schema of your Active Directory service by changing or by adding some new object classes or by adding some new attributes to your user class. There are some applications which require you to have enterprise level or schema changing level administrative top level permissions and top level administrative membership to make changes, to make some huge structural changes to your organizational Active Directory infrastructure. As I have discussed in my first video training session while we were discussing the Active Directory services and what it is and how it can help any organization irrespective of its size and functionality, that schema is a skeleton of Active Directory. Just we have a skeleton as human being. So suppose that you want to do some operation to your face to make your face look like Bill Gates, because you love him, so you want to look like him. But is it really possible, or is it really that much easy to change your structure? And who will change it? Will you really go to your local doctor who is an MBBS and will you really tell him, okay, change my structure and change my facial skeleton bones so that I will look like a Bill Gates, so that I will look like Bill Gates? Obviously not, because you know how much risky it is, and since he does not possess that much of knowledge and he also is not an expert on that, so you will not take the risk of making the core changes of your structure of your human body. So likewise, you will not want to allow any of the administrators who does not possess the necessary knowledge, necessary expert level knowledge of Active Directory service and your Active Directory infrastructure of your organization to make schema level changes which will cause havoc to your infrastructure if anything goes wrong, or if the modification does not success. So it is necessary to keep the enterprise administrator group as much small as possible, so that only knowledgeable expert level key system administrators have the rights to be enterprise admin group member. And who will be the member of enterprise admin group? He or she will have all privileges to make any change to your organizational Active Directory structure. So it is very important that you keep that core admin team intact and as small as possible with cream people only, because that way you avoid the risk of making unnecessary changes to your backbone infrastructure of your organization, and which might cause or even make a huge loss to your company if any infrastructural changes goes wrong. So this empty root domain, in this empty root domain, which is the first domain of your Active Directory infrastructure, will be the root domain of your forest and of your tree as well as your domain. The enterprise admin group will be a part of this domain. So you, to keep the enterprise admin group intact, you need to keep this domain empty, and so that there is no unnecessary activity takes place on this domain until and unless a time comes when you need to make changes to your schema or your other core infrastructural services. So this enterprise admin group is very important, and keep it with a root domain of your Active Directory service, and keep it as a placeholder domain and empty forest root domain. So now, how to delegate the job to other system admins across the organizations very efficiently, so that the job will be delegated wherever necessary without giving unnecessary privileges to the system admin or the desktop admin guys, but also how to give them enough privilege so that they can do their day-to-day admin level job. For that, you might create necessary child domains like blr ocl.in or col.ocl.in for in this example, which are two child domains which are connected to this forest root domain. And in this blr ocl.in there will be a system admin group or a desktop admin group whom you want to give the domain level privilege or certain privileges to take backup, or so that they can unlock any locked user account, or they can create the user account up to a certain level in that particular location. So that way they will have enough privilege to carry out day-to-day job, and also you mitigate the risk of doing any wrong or unnecessary change to the infrastructure by those system admin, by separating the enterprise admin group from the day-to-day domain admin or day-to-day backup admin groups. I hope I am clear on this point. So the best practice is create an empty forest root domain, which is also called a placeholder domain and also called dedicated forest root domain, which will not have any unnecessary object inside it, and it will contain the enterprise admin group, who are the core top level group, system admin group in your organization, having the ultimate privilege to change your schema and all other core system services, and your child domains will help you to delegate necessary job to those localized system admin and give them enough system admin privilege to carry day-to-day work. This is one of the best practice you should follow. I hope this is clear. Now, one more important thing is that in many cases that suppose you have joined an organization and you see that there are thousands of domains. In one of my previous organization, when I joined, I found that the early enterprise admin, the administrator who has left the company, has created domain based on projects. So when I joined, after I analyzed the existing infrastructure, I found out that there were unnecessary child domains that has been created, and it is a mess to administer those unnecessarily huge infrastructure, because many of those projects have already ended, but no one have taken an proactive approach to clear and organize those unwanted domains. Please make it a best practice and a habit not to create domains based on the projects which will stay alive only for 2 to 5 years. Instead of that, please make use of organizational unit which are which are Active Directory objects, and also which are the container that can contain Active Directory users, groups, and the necessary resources for that particular project, and that way you will avoid the risk of managing very complex infrastructure, and you will also help yourself to avoid unnecessary trust relationship issues going forward. So after I joined, with the permission of the top level management, I cleared out all the unnecessary child domains based on the projects which were already retired. I deleted all, but before that I consolidated all the users and groups into the proper domain and organizational unit, so that the structure is manageable, flexible for future growth, as well as capable of handling all the necessary infrastructure during that point of that organization as per the organizational requirement. But also it helped me to sleep soundly at night without fearing that the trust relationship problem among those unnecessary child domains will create problems where many people across the organization will not be able to access resources which are available in other domains. So the best practice is that do not create child domains based on your temporarily alive projects or any projects. Please make use of organizational unit which are Active Directory containers, which can help you to organize users, groups, resources like printers based on your projects or based on your functional groups. One more important thing I would like to say, that many times it happens that due to political organizational structure, many managers are there who are not tech savvy, but they are very powerful managers or powerful directors or powerful stakeholders who want to be Active Directory administrator, although they do not possess necessary technical knowledge, and who doesn't know the best practices of administering and managing a huge Active Directory infrastructure in an organization. You need to be very careful while dealing with those kind of tricky people, because although they don't understand the best practice, if you want to implement the best practice which will actually be good for the organization, they will try to stop you because they fear losing their control in their kingdom, and they think that they are the king of that part of the organization where they can they can advise the system admin and make them work based on his recommendation, which might not be correct on managing Active Directory. I hope you have understood what I want to mean if you are already working in an organization, and if not, if you are a student, please keep this in mind, keep these scenarios in mind while you will go to work in an organization. In that case, you might not be, although you know what is the best practice and good for the company in long run, you might not be able to delete a child object, a child domain, because if the child domain goes, it might create some egoistic problem for that a tyrant manager or tyrant director might be. So now if he or she signs your paycheck, then the situation is horrible for you. You should never try to delete those, and don't dare to delete that child object without taking a permission from the CEO, because you will lose your job. Okay, fine. So these are some friendly advices that I have gone through and I have tried to overcome, and obviously there are some good people who really understand what you want to do for the good of the company, and they will definitely help you with God's blessings. So these are some political reasons that also comes into picture when you pre-plan for organizational growth. And I mean, you might think, why? I mean, these are human psychology. Why how it will affect my technical job of Active Directory. I bet you ask any experienced IT guy who has worked as system admin or desktop admin or a IT manager, they have come across these kind of problems at different point of their IT support career, and this is part of your job. So if you know it, I mean, you don't need to tackle it in a very hard way. And if you come across this, please write to me that my advice has helped you. I'll be the happiest person to know that. Okay, one more technical thing that about child object is that sometimes some companies have some legacy applications for their and they need to continue with that due to their client requirement. So you might have some child domain which is actually a PDC infrastructure, means which is a Windows NT infrastructure, Windows NT 4 infrastructure. So you might want to keep it as it is till the project is over or the requirement of the client is over, because unnecessarily you don't want to create problem for those legacy applications by upgrading this PDC or BDC to Windows Server 2003, because although Windows Server 2003 is an upgraded version, it might not be suitable for many legacy customized applications which might be very much useful for an organizational client. So before making those, you need to consider, before making any upgrade to a domain, you need to consider those points as well. So best practice is keep that Windows NT domain intact until that project goes over or that requirement of running legacy applications gets over. One more important point why you might need to create child domain is that in Windows Server 2003 there is a powerful feature, as we have discussed in our introductory video training session, that group policy object is a very powerful tool and very powerful service. Actually, it is a tool that you can implement in Windows Server 2003 Active Directory infrastructure, with which you can control any or all aspect of your client environment. That is, starting from an automated installation of software based on the credibility and permission of users, and also disabling the clock on the end user desktops so that employees cannot check the clock and go home and stay for longer to work in your organization, so that the CEO will be happy on you as an administrator and might increase your paycheck, just as a trick. Okay, anyway, jokes apart, so the group policy is very much important, and with help of that you can control the password requirement for different clients. Suppose you have different clients from different region, might be EMEA, that is Europe, or might be North American region client, who want different password security to be implemented for their project and for the employees who are working for their project in your organization. In Windows Server 2003 Active Directory infrastructure, you cannot implement different password policy through group policy object at organizational unit level. You need to implement it on a domain level. So suppose that at blr.ocl.in you have a client from EMEA, that is a European region client, who want to have a 7-character password for all the employees who are working for their project. And also here in Kolkata you might be working for a client from North America who want very strict password policy, and they want almost 15 character password to be implemented on the end user desktop who are working for their project. So to do that, you need to create two different group policy, and you need to create these two different group policy object to implement the password policy, the unique password policy for EMEA region client with 7 characters and for North American region client with 15 characters. But you cannot implement this group policy at the organizational unit level, because for Windows Server 2003 infrastructure, Active Directory infrastructure, you cannot create unique password policy and cannot implement group policy for unique password requirement at the organizational unit level. That you need to do at the domain level only, and for that reason you need to have two different domains, and on which you can create two different group policy object to implement this unique password requirement based on the client requirement. So this is the best practice, and why you might need child domain also. Now hope on this there are two organizational that have different namespace. Suppose OCL.in and the other one is OCL.in and the other one is growtall.local, for example. Now while merging these two distinct company who have two different second level domain namespace, second level domain namespace, that is OCL.in and growtall.local, if they merge, you need to have a different password policy and everything, but you need to have different resources make available for the other part of the organization. So these two organizations, there is A and B, is going to now be one company. So these the resources available on this company B will be accessed by this company A now after the merger. So this B company, that the growtall.local, need to trust the user from OCL.in, and as well as the vice versa, the resources available on the users available on growtall, users available on this growtall will need to have access to this OCL.in. So both the different forests now will need to trust each other, so that the users on both the side can access all the resources available on the other side of the fence. To do that, you need to create manually two numbers of one-way trust relationship, so that the A company, that is OCL.in, trust growtall.local and growtall.local trust OCL.in. Now in Windows 2003, to make your life easier, in a tree, the child, parent domain all have transitive trust. That means if A trust B and B trust C, A trust B and B trust C, that means A trust C also. So by following this trust relationship available by default in Active Directory infrastructure, when you create the trust relationship between these two companies, the child domains will also have transitive trust relationship, and col.ocl.in will already trust branch1 at branch1.growtall.local, and branch1.growtall.local will also trust blr.ocl.in, and also will trust col.ocl.in through transitive trust relationship automatically. So this is a great way to trust each other and for company mergers, but here you need to create two manual trust relationship to have this thing in place. But if you already know that you are the admin of ocl.in and you are going to acquire growtall.local, so when you are creating the first domain controller, creating a domain controller in growtall.local, while joining the forest, you ask it to join the to join an existing forest, that is ocl.in. That way it will, from the first day on, for first time onwards, it will automatically have the necessary trust, and you will not be required to create manual trust relationship between them. Now I will tell you some more thing before I go to that, the installation, practical installation. Please always, the best practice is to always create child domain names based on the purpose of that child domain, not based on the location of that child domain, because it will help you in the long run if the child domain office get relocated to a different city or different country altogether. Suppose in case of growtall.local domain, you can see two child domain that has been created based on their functionality and their purpose, that is HQ headquarter.growtall.local and branch1.growtall.local. That means if the headquarter of growtall.local tomorrow move from New York to Cincinnati, it is not be required to change the domain name, because headquarter will always be headquarter irrespective of where it is located. In that case, your job as a system admin will not be a burden, and you will not need to spend sleepless night because of the change of the location of your company headquarter. But in case, if suppose you are located, your headquarter is located in blr.ocl.in and it got moved to Chennai, then you need to change the domain name, because otherwise it will be a big confusion afterwards if you still keep the name as blr.ocl.in, although 1 year back your headquarter moved to Chennai, or vice versa. So you can see the best practice is to create child domain name based on the purpose of the domain, not based on the purpose of the location, not based on the location of the child domain. So now the last thing I would like to discuss, that why this growtall.local growtall.local is growtall.local, and why the same company have a different name outside the firewall, that is in public growtall.co.in. What is the benefit and why it is like that? You see, the growtall.local, this .local domain extension, the domain is not resolvable by the public DNS. That is, there is no .local available. it is either .com, .net, .gov, .in, .us, .co, .co.in, or .net, etc., 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 but not .local. So if you create your internal domain as growthall.local, for example, then it will be to some degree hack proof, and your internal Active Directory structure and domain will be separate and secure from the outside world, where many hackers are available to hack. So your company information will be secured to some degree. So the internal DNS zone will have .local, and internal DNS zone will have .local, and external DNS zone will have .co.in. So that means that the user query, the end user query that comes from inside the company will be serviced by the .local DNS server, and the outside, like mail, FTP and all, like your mail, email, FTP, and your web server, these will be in your DMZ zone, and this will be, and when somebody query this to access these services from your company, then it will be served by the growthall.co.in external DNS server, which will have that DNS zone file. So this is kind of a concept that if you know the IP networking, it is kind of a private and public networking, where your internal network will have private IP address which are not routable to outside world, and also the outside world will have public IP addresses, unique public IP addresses, which are not required from the internal systems. One more thing is that how we can set up this .local and .co.in is that you need to know what is conditional forwarding. That conditional forwarding is that okay, this is got cluttered. Let me open a new window for you. What is we are now discussing about this conditional forwarding. Conditional DNS forwarding actually. This is a new feature in Windows Server 2003 Active Directory DNS and infrastructure. So what is conditional forwarding? Suppose this from this growthall.local somebody wants to access a resource in ocl.in. So if conditional forwarding is not set, then when this client tries to query and ask the DNS that where is blr.ocl.in, what it will try to say, this DNS, your local DNS server will say that okay, I am not the zone owner of that ocl.in. So what you do, it will try to go to this dot on the internet, which is the root DNS domain on the internet, and ask where is this ocl.in or where is this ocl.local. If it is .local, then it is much more troublesome, because .root will tell, okay, you go, I don't have any answer, or you go to .com and try to answer, because it is something it knows. So I mean, your DNS will be redirected to these known DNS zones, which will say we don't know the answer. So actually it will get a no answer. So, and your DNS server will give the client a negative query answer, because the answer has not been found properly. It is called the negative query. So now this negative, due to this will be a big problem. So if the conditional forwarding is set on this DNS server, so what will happen, this DNS server will have a record that whenever somebody will ask me for any kind of record that which is related to ocl.in or ocl.local, I will forward the DNS query to, suppose, 192.168.1.1, just for example. So that 192.168.1.1 is the IP address of the DNS server in ocl.in, which is hosting that particular DNS zone, and which is the owner of that, and that has all the resource records of all the systems inside that DNS zone, and your answer will be positive, because it knows the answer of your query, and it will reply with a positive answer to your DNS query, which will ultimately be sent to the client who is asking for that record. So this conditional forwarding will also make it faster, and also it will help you to avoid unnecessary negative query, which is time consuming and not efficient at all. Also, in some case, if the trees are very long, here it is only 2, there might be 2 more, and there might be 2 more, so the tree will grow, and if some query comes, the query will go all the way by round and round, and then land to something, or maybe again redirected to something else, which might also have more branches from it. So the query has to go through a long path of to get the answer. Instead of that, you can create a shortcut, trust relationship and shortcut method, where if you know that you have very frequent questions about this DNS server, then you create a conditional forwarding, and if anything comes, it will directly be redirected to this DNS server, which will save your time and also save the query to travel the long path. So now hope you are able to see how the conditional forwarding service in Active Directory 2003 is really helpful in efficient usage of Active Directory in your infrastructure. One more important thing here is that some people tell that you can use .com here and .com .co.in here and .co.in here, but that is not very much suitable, because it might be security breach, and it will also create problem, because in Microsoft DNS structure, a domain, you cannot set conditional forwarding for a zone for which you are already the host for a DNS. Suppose that if it is also co.in, then okay, it got cluttered. Let me clear it up a little bit. So suppose that this is also .co.in, this cannot be done, because here it is also co.in, here it is also is co.in. Then you cannot have a conditional forwarding from this internal DNS server to external DNS server, because as per Microsoft DNS structure, a domain server, a DNS server cannot have a conditional forwarding for a zone which it is actually hosting within itself. So if it is hosting grotol.co.in, how can it have a conditional forwarding to other DNS server which is also hosting co.in, because this is not acceptable. Instead, what you can do, you can have here it is .local, and you can have co.in here, and you can set conditional forwarding over here. Or instead, you on this DNS, on this firewall, you stop the port 53, the TCP IP port 53, stop it, so the DNS query will not pass from this DNS server to the external DNS server. Take the resource records from this DNS server, like the resource records of the MX records and the A record and the NS record and the other necessary records from the external DNS server, and keep those resource records in the host file of this internal DNS server. So what will happen, whenever some query comes, it will your internal DNS server will know where to go for that particular FTP service or www service or mail service. So I hope this best practice will definitely help you in your organization very practically, and will make your life easier and smarter. Let's now, I have given you enough best practices from my 15 years of experience and whatever I learned on the job in a hard way. I am sure that if you can implement these best practices in your regular job, your life will be very smart, and you will be a smart system admin or a desktop admin, and will definitely win the war in Active Directory infrastructure management. If it really helps you, please give me a feedback on this training. I will love to hear your positive stories. Let's now see how we will install the Active Directory domain controller and Active Directory service on our existing Windows Server 2003 Enterprise box. So if you can remember from the video training of the previous video training, where we learned how to install Windows Server 2003 Enterprise version on a brand new or an existing hardware box. You can see I am at my virtual lab, where I am starting my virtual machine, but in your case it will be a real hardware. You just switch on the power button to switch it on if it is turned off, or open the or just log on as an admin in that Windows Server 2003 box. In my case it was switched off, so I switched on my Windows Server 2003 box, server box now. I hope you have seen this familiar Windows boot up screen already if you have installed any of the Windows versions. So now you can see the server has been booted up, and we are at a logon screen. So just press Alt Control Delete, and here you need to give your administrative password which you had given during the setup of this Windows Server 2003 Enterprise Edition. So I have given the administrative password and I have been logged on. So now we will install the Active Directory service on this server. There are a couple of ways through which you can start the Active Directory installation. One is from this manage your server dialog box. You can click on the add or remove a role and you can choose to install that. We will do it that way, but prior to that I will show you what are the other ways. The other way is you click on start and click on the command prompt, and here you type dc promo. You type dc promo at the command prompt and the Active Directory installation setup wizard will start, and you need to follow the wizard to complete the installation of Active Directory services. So we will not do it this way, so I am just exiting. And also one more way is that you can click on start and go to run and directly type dc promo and click on the OK button or press the enter key on your keyboard to start the Active Directory installation wizard. So now I am clicking on this add or remove a role on the manage your server box to start the process. Here it is asking you the preliminary steps and all. You can see before continuing, verify that the following steps have been completed. Install all modems and network cards, attach all necessary cables in your practical environment. You should make sure that network cable are firmly attached to your network card of your server, because if the proper physical connectivity is not there, your Active Directory installation might fail. If you plan to use the server internet connectivity, connect to the internet now. Generally not required. Turn on all peripherals such as printers, external drives. Have your Windows Server 2003 setup CD available, or know your network installation path. Funny part is that Active Directory for Active Directory they actually always say CD. You might also use DVD. That doesn't matter. Just on a joke side. Okay, now click on this next to continue. I clicked on continue, so now the configure your server wizard is searching and trying to detect settings for my local area network, and it will give you the options after that. Let's wait. So now here the configuration wizard is giving you the options. The first one is configure this server using typical configuration for a fast server, and you can also customize your server roles as per your need. So we will, our intention and motto here to install Active Directory services and make it a the first domain controller of our infrastructure. So we will do that by clicking the custom configuration and clicking on next. Now actually this wizard have given you the necessary options. It is your wish to choose which role to install. Here our role is to install domain controller and Active Directory. So I have clicked on that option and I am clicking on next. It is telling run the Active Directory installation wizard to set up this server as a domain controller, and you can also change your selection by clicking back to continue setting up this role. Click next. Now it is installing the Active Directory for us, and then there will be an interactive session. It will be an interactive session where it might give default options and will allow you to change the option as per your requirement. So it is the wizard is welcoming you to the Active Directory installation wizard, and it is telling that it will help you to install Active Directory and your first domain controller. So I am clicking on next. Here this is an important operating system compatibility warning option. It is telling that Windows 95 and Windows 94 Service Pack 3 or earlier clients will not be compatible with Windows Server 2003, because there is a service called SMB service, which is a security requirement for Windows 2003, which is not compatible with this old legacy version of this Windows client. So here you can see that installation and configuration of Active Directory is going on, and the configuration wizard is doing the necessary steps and preparing and installing, copying files and doing the necessary steps to proceed in installing the Active Directory service and the domain controller role installation for us as we have instructed it. So I'll not kill your valuable time here to learn this. So let the wizard proceed, and I'll be back when it will give you other options to choose from, which are important for your learning, other than seeing this progress bar increasing. Okay, now the wizard is asking us for this compatibility, which I have discussed just now. So this Windows 95 and Windows 94 Service Pack 3 is not compatible. So you need to, if you have Windows 94, you need to upgrade it to Service Pack 4 and to use this older legacy systems to work with Windows Server 2003. So click on next. Now it is asking you the domain controller type. Do you want this server to become a domain controller for a new domain or an additional domain controller for an existing domain? The default option is domain controller for a new domain, which is also suitable for us. The other option is that additional domain controller for an existing domain. We will choose this additional domain controller for an existing domain option when we will install our additional domain controller, and I will show you how to do that in our next video training session. But for now, please click on this domain controller for a new domain option, and it is already clicked by default, so we will let it be like that and click on next. It is also giving three options, like create a domain in a new forest, child domain in an existing domain tree, and domain tree in an existing forest. As we have discussed several times in today's sessions, that we are going to create a new forest, a new domain tree, and the first domain in our organizational infrastructure. So it will be a new forest for us in this scenario. Now here you have to give the full DNS name for new domain, like headquarter.microsoft.com. For us it will be suppose for us we are creating this olc.local, or we will be giving the full name like online computer learning.local as our internal domain name, and this will be the domain name for our infrastructure. So online computer learning.local we have typed, and click on next. We could have also given olc.local. So now it is asking what will be the domain NetBIOS name. See, by default it has taken how many characters? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. It will by default take 15 characters, but if you want, you can decrease the number of characters as per your need. So here you can see it has chosen online computer L, so it doesn't look good on your infrastructure. So for the NetBIOS sake of NetBIOS name, we are removing the L so that it will be online computer, which looks good, and this will be the NetBIOS name for our infrastructure, which will be required for the older versions of Windows to identify a new domain. So for the Windows 2003 infrastructure and all systems having operating system above Windows NT4 Spec 4 server to Windows 2003, it will be able to understand online computer learning.local, and for the legacy application legacy systems, it will be able to recognize the domain NetBIOS name online computer. I'm clicking on next. For best performance and recovery options, it is asking where to keep the database, the ntds.dit, and also the log folders for the Active Directory. If you have seen my first online video session that is named Active Directory Introduction as a session, you will know that I have emphasized on the fact that the ntds.dit, which is the database file for Active Directory, an important file that need to be backed up, that is located under the root directory and ntds subfolder. So it will be c:\windows ntds/ntds.dit, means it will be like this. When you complete the installation ntds.dit, it will be like this. This will be the path, but for now actually it will be \. So for now let it be like this, and click next. The sysvol folder, which is a very important folder, which contains the group policy object, the startup and logon and logout script, and this folder gets replicated among all the domain controllers in your Active Directory infrastructure for to avoid single logon failure service. So the sysvol folder is where all the logon script, logout scripts, group policy objects will be stored, which will be replicated, and it will be situated at c:\windows sysvol directory. As I had discussed earlier, that without DNS service available on your infrastructure, the Active Directory will not be able to continue, and it will not continue, and it will help you to create the fast DNS server on your infrastructure before installation of Active Directory. Here you can see that there are three options, and it is telling I have corrected the problem, perform DNS diagnostic test again, because it is unable to find a DNS server, or it is helping you by giving an option install and configure the DNS server on this computer, and set this computer to use this DNS server as its preferred DNS server. And it will also give you an option that I will correct the problem later by configuring DNS manually. That is the advanced mode, which is not required at this moment. So you select and let the default option be checked, that is install and configure the DNS server on this computer, and set this computer to use the DNS server as its preferred DNS server. In Windows Server 2003 infrastructure, it is always a best practice to make all the domain controllers a DNS server, because that way you will have multiple DNS server at any point of time to serve the query that comes from, to service the DNS query that comes from end users. And if one DNS server goes down, there will be other DNS servers available in your infrastructure to serve the query, and there will be no downtime of your infrastructure. And also that Active Directory integrated DNS infrastructure, which we will make now, and will help the DNS zone to be replicated along with the zone replication of the data replication of Active Directory services among domain controllers. So I clicked on next, and there are two more options about the default permissions and groups. The first one is permission compatible with pre-Windows 2000 server operating system, and the second one, the default one, is permission compatible only with Windows 2000 or 2003 operating system. You see that the default option is the best option for the security purpose, as the security will be very much strong and it will be Kerberos 5 version 5 based. So if you don't have any legacy systems on your infrastructure, and we are assuming here that it is a new infrastructure, so there is no need of any backward compatibility, and there is no need to compromise on the security aspect of Active Directory. So we are keeping this permission compatible only with Windows 2000 or 2000 server, Windows Server 2003 operating system. Click checked and clicking on the next button. Here you have to give the restore mode. If the Active Directory fails or there is a problem, you can always start the domain controller in restore mode, and you can restore Active Directory services to make the infrastructure live. So here you will give a administrative password. This password does not necessarily be the same as your admin password. It might be a unique password as well, but please remember this password. You might need it to use. You might need to use it while restoring Active Directory. So now, summary before proceeding to the final step and make the changes, Active Directory installation wizard is giving you the summary that what you have chosen and what will happen if you click next. It is telling you the NetBIOS name will be online computer, and the database folder, logon folder, log file folder will be under root directory NTDS subdirectory, and also the sysvol folder will be under C:\Windows sysvol, and DNS service will be installed and configured on this server also, and this computer will be configured to use DNS server as its preferred DNS server. The password of the new domain controller will be the same as the password of the administrator of this computer. So the password, the domain admin password will be the same that we had given while installing the Windows Server 2003. So I am it seems everything is okay, so I am clicking on the next button to continue this setup. If you have seen my first video, that is Active Directory introduction, there I might have made a small mistake by telling that the ntds.dit file will be situated on C:\Windows C:\ntds directory, but just a small correction on that ntds.dit file will be situated on C:\Windows C:\Windows/ntds subdirectory. Under that, ntds.dit folder will be ntds.dit file will be located and situated. I'll show you practically once this setup completes. You can see that the installation wizard is continuing, and what it is showing you the status, what it is doing. It might take a few minutes based on your infrastructure, but in our case it will be faster because it is a new infrastructure that we are creating, and this is the first domain controller in our Active Directory infrastructure. I will allow you to see what is going on, as for many of you it might be the first time that you are seeing an installation, because most of the time if you work for a company, if you are not a top level system admin, you might not be able to see these installations, and I bet you that in many of the top level training center you will not be able to see it, because it is very much time consuming, and there is a risk that you might as a student you might make a wrong step and their infrastructure will be in problem. So it's not a wrong thing, but here since you get the opportunity, please see it very carefully to get an idea. So now we can see that the DNS has been configured and Active Directory installation wizard has completed the installation process. It is telling that domain controller is assigned to the site default first site name. This is the name of the default first site name, is the name of the site under which this domain controller will be located. I'll say the site is the first subject, which is very interesting and efficient way of handling the replication process among domain controllers, for which you will be able to learn that in my upcoming video training by next week. So please keep visiting and keep learning. So I am clicking on the finish button, and the wizard is now asking me to restart the computer, the server. So I am just restarting to make the changes permanent. So the server has been booted now. It has been rebooted, and Windows Server 2003 is coming up. This time you will be able to see the domain name while try to log on, because now it is a part of the Active Directory, new Active Directory domain, online computer learning.local. And I hope you can remember the NetBIOS name of this domain will be online computer. So now it is not a member server or a standalone server, it is a domain controller of the domain online computer learning.local. You see the Windows is starting up and taking a little time, because it will, since it is a member of an Active Directory domain, it will see whether it needs to run any logout script or any membership upgradation, or it will start all the necessary services. Please remember that it is not only a domain controller of your online computer learning.local domain, it is also the preferred DNS domain naming system server for your domain and for your infrastructure. So any DNS query that comes from user will be served by this one and only domain naming system server at this moment. But we will definitely create more domain controller which will also be DNS server for the safety and for the continuation, and as a proactive approach to avoid infrastructure downtime. In case the first domain controller goes down, the other domain controllers and DNS servers will continue to serve the query, and the service will continue to provide service to the users. I hope this concept is clear to you, why you should have more than one domain controller and more than one DNS server in your Active Directory infrastructure. There is also one more important service and server role, that is called global catalog in Active Directory, for which we will discuss very elaborately in our upcoming video training session. So please keep learning and keep visiting for updates. See, as I told, now earlier you might have seen, earlier you must have seen that there were no logon to option available, because that time it was a part of a work group. Now it is the domain controller of online computer domain. So I am giving the domain admin password here, and I am clicking on OK. So I have been authenticated by the domain controller as a domain admin and enterprise admin member, and it is now giving me the option to work on it. Can you please tell me if you have learned and carefully gone through the training session, which type of domain that we have created right now? Okay, if you are telling that it is a forest root domain, then you are correct. This is the forest root domain for the domain named online computer or named online computer learning.local. See, it is clearly telling this server is now a domain controller. You can see the view the next steps for this role if you want to see it for learning purpose and to continue. It will give you what is required, what a kind of administrative steps you should take next, but as of now not required, so we are closing this. If you want to see the configure your server log, you can see that. Now you can see that it has been the configured on 12th of March 2012 at 2 minutes past 5 p.m. as a domain controller, and the server has been successfully set up as a domain controller. So we have not faced any problem, and our setup was smooth and based on our pre-planning on domain and domain controller. So if you follow the best practices that I have suggested, you will surely be a successful system admin of Active Directory services. So fine. So now we can see that we have completed the installation of our Active Directory services and on this computer, and if you click on start all programs and if you go to administrative tools, you will be given the necessary tools to administer your for the administration of your infrastructure, Active Directory infrastructure. Main important 3 tools are Active Directory users and computers, Active Directory sites and services, and Active Directory domain and trusts. This we will discuss elaborately in our upcoming video training sessions to make you an expert on that. But for now, I'll show you where to find this ntds.dit file, which is an important file. You go to my computer, go to C drive, go to Windows folder and go to ntds subfolder. Here this is the file that I was referring to in my first nugget as well as my this training nugget. ntds and dit file is very important. By default there is no additional account we have created. So by default, if somebody asks you in an interview that what is the base size and what is the startup size of ntds dit, when you create a fresh installation, you should tell the exact size of ntds dit as a for a fresh installation will be 12 MB, or to be very precise 12,304 kilobyte. I'll show you how to administer. Just a quick note. Go to users and computers and it will be opened up for you. If you are a curious student like me, you will be able to see, you will want to see it. You see we can see the full FQDN, that is fully qualified domain name of our domain, online computer learning.local, and if you click on it, it will show you 5 folders, that is built-in, computers, domain controllers, foreign security principal, and users. If you want to create users, you need to go to users, and here you can create users. By default you can see the built-in users and also the computers, built-in users, and you can see the groups like if you double click, you can see the domain admin group, you can see the domain computers group, you can see the domain guest, domain user, enterprise admin group, which I was telling and emphasizing in my previous nugget, and how important is it and why it should be kept in this forest root domain for security purpose and ease of delegation, proper delegation. If you click on the domain controllers, you'll be able to see this computer as the only domain controller, and when you create new additional domain controller, those will be seen under this container folder. So for now we are done with the installation of successful installation of Active Directory infrastructure, and I hope this video training session has been very informative for you, and I would like to thank you for your valuable time and for learning from onlinecomputerlearning.in website. I really appreciate if you please send your feedback, either it is good, bad, or new suggestions. It will help me to create more valuable, informative video sessions for you guys. And if it is helpful, please share your success stories with others, your friends, and the more people will see it, the more good it will be to spread the information and knowledge with others. Till then, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the success.